Hey. It's your host, Troy Smith. I'm here with my boy, Matt Lowe. Matt, say what's up, everybody.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, Troy.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, Troy. It's great. We are here live at the NOTI Lounge studio where it all goes down. Welcome. This is the very first time we had somebody here live in the room post-corona.
Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. We all here. We ready to get it popping and going.
Let's do it.
Well, look, man. So, welcome again to NOTI Lounge. I'm your host, Troy Smith. I got my boy, the young Yoda, I call him, Matt Lowe. Matt Lowe is actually my neighbor.
Yeah.
He's looking at this board of what I'm doing. He's trying to say, what the heck? What are you doing over there? But he's my neighbor. We know each other because our children go to the same school. And so our kids play together, get to talking to somebody, you get to know them a little bit, and it's like, man, your life is interesting. So we got to talk.
Let's do it.
And that's what we did. And that's what we're going to do today because he got something else going on that's different in general. My boy, Matt, look how this just switched on you. Just went straight to the relaxing music. You know what I'm saying? Well, so we live on social media right now. Thank you all for, if you're here with us live, thank you for listening live at the NOTI Lounge. If you're not listening to or not subscribed to the audio version, because, you know, podcasting is all really about audio. That's what it's really about. So you want to get that full audio experience, make sure you go to any platform you listen to, any podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the NOTI Lounge, NOTI Lounge. What NOTI Lounge stand for, you ask, right?
Yes, I did.
Not overthinking it.
That's perfect.
Right? And
Absolutely.
I wanted to have the naughty thing because it sounds kind of weird and naughty, right?
Yeah.
So it might get people listening and thinking to say, what the heck is the NOTI Lounge about?
And you're overthinking it already.
And that's how, and then you start overthinking it. So you think about somebody running around naked on the camera or something, or they talking about something stupid on the, no, we're actually a podcast for business owners and future entrepreneurs, or people that want to become business owners, or just people in general just want to know about life. Like today, we're going to talk about life.
Yeah, I can't think of a better title for it then.
Right. So we're not overthinking things. And for your situation, that's the good thing.
Absolutely.
It's all about the surrender.
Sure enough.
So Matt is, like I said, a neighbor, friends, our children play together, friends. I got to talking to Matt one day, and like every conversation with grown people, you always ask, so what is that you do?
That's right.
And Matt said nothing. He said, I'm actually retired. I said, hold on. What do you mean retired? Now my mind is perked up. I'm overthinking more. I'm like, what do you mean retired? And how old are you? And he said, I'm only 38. You just turned 38, right?
I did in May.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, wrong way. Well, either way, I hit the like a joke.
Yes.
but my boy Matt turned 38 just in May, retired from work. And I'm asking, how in the world he retired at 38 years old? And he started breaking it down to me a little bit. So tell us about the first, just take us from the beginning of the story of Matthew Lowe. Because in your family, like Amish or something like that?
No.
They're not Amish. No.
On my mom's distant side of the family, Mennonites from northeastern Virginia. So on my mom's side, they're already like sort of down to earth, grounded type people. And that really, I guess, had an impact on my upbringing and my outlook on life. On that end, I would say where the retirement journey really began was the fall of 2017. So we're almost getting to 4 years now of where that started. And it really began from, for lack of a better term, just being completely irritated, disgusted, and frustrated with life. That it wasn't going the way that I wanted it to go. Work wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. My wife often likes to say that I get easily distracted by squirrels. That if
off the top, huh?
Right,
squirrel.
Off the, squirrel. There, chase it. Because I was so eager to find something else that you mentioned earlier, selling football tickets, basketball tickets. That was a fun hobby. And after that had concluded, I was always searching for that next side hustle.
So you just get bored quick? Like after you had accomplished something, was it the fact that you just get bored fast?
It was a combination of getting bored, but also of reaching the end, the conclusion of where that stream of thought ended. And so, for example, whether it was, I'm talking a decade or more ago, being into Bitcoin and thinking, oh, I should mine this, and this is a long, long time ago. Yeah. When Bitcoin was like literally $20.
Right. And you was mining it. You can't just buy it on
I was thinking about it. And so I did all this research and then I was like, it didn't feel right. But I would go down all these bunny trails, all these, chase all these squirrels, and nothing ever materialized. I had friends that were self-employed and they would give me their business plans like, all right, I'm going to do this, and sit down, put forth time and effort. And it's not me being boasting, but like I'm a somewhat smart person, and if I put forth a lot of hard work, I should be just as successful as all these people.
So the comparison was there, the compete. I was saying that, man, I'm 30 something. This person, we went to the same school. I'm smarter than him or her
in a way. Yeah.
And why in the world are they doing this?
And if they're going to give me their business plan, why can't I complete that? And I was just constantly hitting my head against a wall. Just how do I get out of the corporate environment that I was kind of in, but kind of frustrated with, and I just kept beating my head up against that wall. And then finally, a friend of mine was going through a tough time in his life, and he was describing to me starting over, getting rid of all of the presuppositions of life. And if you could break down life into its bare essence, are you interested in that journey? And for me at that time, my friend had gone through a divorce, whereas for me, I like to say that we all hit our rock bottoms at different levels. And thank God, my quote unquote rock bottom really wasn't that bad in the grand scheme of things.
And listen to everybody else rock bottom, exactly, like, oh, mine not nearly as bad as yours.
Not nearly as bad, but each of us have our own relative rock bottom that, like, for me, that's where it was, being completely dissatisfied with life, the corporate world, and just being utterly and completely frustrated. And that's all it took.
But frustrated by the fact of just seemed like things weren't going as fast as you thought they should go.
Absolutely. Or being as quote unquote successful as I thought that I
whatever success meant to you at that time was what?
At the time was, so one of the things that my friend and I, he was big into real estate investing, and I was kind of getting my feet wet in that arena. And there was a real estate coach that has you, list out, here are the things that you value and find important, write these down, because this is what you're gonna look at every day before you go out and hustle. Yeah. And so for me, I had that list. It was okay. I wanted to live in Green Hills. I wanted my kids to go to Innsworth or some really nice private school. I had all these
like, did you have one where you say I want to be married by this time and all this other stuff? Did you break it down to that point?
Not so much for that. This was around between 2015 2017 of
when don't be distracted by the squirrel that's on the floor right now. My wife, who's crawling rather than just walking by and opening the door, which you're going to see if you're looking at the video open, she's crawling on the floor. So don't be distracted, man. I just helped you out. Go ahead.
And so I guess for me, it was that big turning point of turning 30. Like that was this huge monumental thing. Like I was just utterly depressed. I'm 30, married, at that point, no kids, I all these measurements of life that I hadn't achieved at that point yet. And I'm like, okay, I need to get my life in order, so here's the things that I'm going to do. I'm going to, here's the list of everything that I want to accomplish. And I knew at that point that if I focused and put forth the effort, because of previous corporate success, being a hard worker and things like that, of achieving certain goals in my own sales and corporate life, I knew I could attain them. And so for me, it was just sheer will and hard work. And the irony of all of this journey has been to show me that, take all of that and just scrap it. That it's not about all of the effort that you think that you can do. Whereas if you'll just surrender and allow life to work for you, that things go a lot more smoothly. Right. It's a lot less hectic. And so beginning of fall, Labor Day of 2017, just my friend and I just said, okay, we're going to summarize this journey into the sort of one fundamental question. And that is, if you could know the meaning of life, but it meant that everything you thought was right was wrong, would you still want to know? And so kind of
where did he get that question from? Where did it come?
It was just innate within us. Like, how do we quantify this? How do we, describe this? And it wasn't until well into the process that we sort of realized it's sort of that Morpheus red pill, blue pill kind of situation. Like, do you want to be content with, the doldrums of everyday life as the system of life has sort of put that out there for us? Or do you really want to know and experience true peace and happiness? And so it's like, all right, it seems like a really dumb and naive thing to say, oh yes, this is what I want, I'm going to sign up for this. And you have no idea the treachery that journey will bring to your doorstep, just so that you can overcome it and see how life is there to work for you. And so that's really what started it. And so fall of 17, beginning to meditate. I remember, for me, it was just 5 minutes a day, and it took probably 6 months before I could get past 5 minutes of meditation. I'd set my timer on my phone, so in case I did happen to fall asleep within 5 minutes, I'd have something there to wake me up. But just knowing that I could turn everything off and focus, and really, I didn't focus on a mantra or anything. Can I sit still, shut up, and switch the voice in your head off for 5 minutes, and we'll just see what happens. And was pleasantly surprised that as that began, every now and then I'd get this weird inspiration or something would happen. And that would kind of keep me, that was my hit. And so I could come back for more, it's sort of the drug analogy that, like, okay. I remember one of the first times I was on a business trip. I'm like, okay, I'm stuck on this plane to Rochester, New York. So let's give this a shot. How long can I just shut it off? And what comes to me? And I'm sitting there on this airplane. It's probably 10 o'clock at night. It was a really late flight. And I just shut it down. I'm like, first of all, I hope I don't fall asleep, because then it's going to ruin the next day. But surprisingly, I don't fall asleep. And I'm sitting there, and this image of this like grizzly bear pops up in my mind. And I had this thought of, this bear lives perfectly in its natural environment. What is the perfect and natural life of a human? What does that even look like? And that was really one of the driving forces for me early on, of sitting there and trying to think and feel out, what does that pure state of being look like for someone, that you could say, this is their perfect life. This is they're functioning perfectly. And that drove me, and it still does, even to this day.
But the thing is that, so the first thing is this. You look at you like a white guy. Yeah. Grew up not in a bad spot, right?
No.
Not grew up in a bad. So, and your frustrations of life of being, I'm competing with someone I would think I should be in that same spot. For what is the question though?
That's just it. I mean, there
was no reason why. You were just
growing up
innate.
I was always a very competitive person. Sports always played a big role.
Did you play sports?
Off and on. I wasn't. I actually was a manager for our high school basketball team, because we had a really stellar high school basketball team, and I just wanted to be part of it. And I would practice, and the coaches were gracious enough to involve me, and I had fun doing it, but I was never on the team per se. But I always had that competitive drive to, even whenever I was playing intramurals in college.
So you that guys want to live out the dream that you didn't do. They were like, come on, man. Like, you can't play pickup ball regular. You got to actually have a full-fledged team running plays. Like, make sure everybody gets to the other side of the court.
I don't know if it was that so much, or just I wanted personal excellence in everything that I did.
Right.
And that personal excellence for me was even to the detriment of those around me.
Yeah.
My wife would just, one of her favorite sayings once I did retire was, "Oh, I like you so much more now that you're not working." Because for me, I would drive either colleagues or other people within the organizations in which I was working. I would drive them nuts, because I would expect the same kill or be killed attitude from them that I expect from myself. And
was you ever at the top of the sales?
When I worked for a cell phone provider, I worked in a regional office / call center area, where I was probably on a team with over 150 people that had worked there for 10 or plus years. And within the first 3 months, I was in the top 5, and I stayed there for the year that I was in, working for that company. And so it drove me to corporate success. Everybody liked that. Oh, there's, one of our top performers. But they didn't understand the internal toll that it took on me as far as
emotionally.
Integrating all that stress and that drive, because it was important to me to be at the top of that list and just show everybody, hey, this is my self-worth.
Right.
I'm at the top of this list. I've only been here for a few months and I'm outperforming 145.
So with that being the case, but then you will see someone else that may have been, as you would thought, higher. Like outside, like they come to you, like your friend or neighbor, someone to say, hey man, I got this business plan, which I don't know why they used to bring a business plan to you to let you review it. What was that for?
It was just, conversation. Hey, this is what I do. Because I, like you, I was always very curious about what other people did. And again, always looking for that next hustle of, okay, well, you do this. Okay, how did you make money doing this? Okay, I want to see if I can incorporate that to my life. And I was just go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even a friend of mine that is a successful real estate investor, it's probably a good thing that we never got in business together, especially at that time in my life. I would have driven him nuts because it would have been, okay, we're doing two deals this month. I'm like, okay, that's not enough. We got to do 4. We got to do 6. We got to do 8.
Which in the corporate world, people love that. Like, man, Matt, dude, we need that guy. Now they wouldn't like you,
right?
But the numbers will be there. But so one day it just overcame you with the just stress of internal unrest, right?
I would just say that once I was in the job that I had most recently, I was there for 10 years. And about, I guess I started in 2010. It was about 20. So I'm 7 years into this job.
Yeah.
And I just felt that there was a dead end, because the people above me were only in their late 40s, early 50s. And they knew they were going to be around until retirement. So that I was going to be doing the exact same job
for the next 40 years,
for the next, 20, 30 years. And like, that just did not.
They didn't sit well with you. So you was riding, not just besides your friend having the internal situation he had going on with going to divorce and stuff, you were just maybe talking to him about, man, I'm just frustrated. Stuff. I'm frustrated with myself.
Sure. Yeah.
About how I'm just so driven and it's not really giving me nowhere. And I see my friend over here and I'm competing against that person, which is like a revolving wheel.
I was a hamster on a wheel and I was spinning that wheel.
And no one else is putting it on you but you. You put it on yourself.
Absolutely.
So what day was that? I know you probably got a day in your mind that said on January 13th, whatever it was, that day I said, I'm done.
Okay. So I do have a text message that I actually took a picture of. It was the spring of 2018. We would sit down with the president of our company, and he would go through our employee stock option purchase model. And so he'd say, okay, whenever your shares vest January of 2020, this is what your portfolio is going to be worth. You keep investing in the 401k like you're doing. By the time you hit 59.5, you're going to be worth X. And so for me, I was like, okay, I can suck it up and put myself through hell if there's even a glimmer of light at the end of that tunnel, which was, in my mind at that point in 2018, financial success. If I can get
your kids at the school that you wanted to, all the other stuff,
all that stuff, and get to that point and be a millionaire or whatever it was, I can sacrifice my own happiness
and go through hell mentally
to get there. But I knew that wasn't right. Something inside me was like, this is not
going like it needs to.
And so I texted my friend and he's like, okay, you got to take a picture of this, capture this moment because you're gonna look back on this and laugh. And so as the year progressed, I get to July of 2018. I'm sitting there with my boss, the CEO, and the president of the company. And unbeknownst to me, my boss, just out of the blue, says, I know you've been excelling in all of your jobs. You've hit all your numbers. I just don't think you're the right person to do sales for us anymore. And I was floored. But at the moment, I never showed any emotion.
Your poker face was strong.
Well, it was only strong because inside my head, it was, okay, remember back in March when you thought that you were going to be out of here? This is the toothpaste leaving the tube. You can't put it back in. Right now you're done. And it wasn't until like the next day I come to work and my boss comes in my office. He's like, you took that news really well. Like what was going through your head? I'm like, everything's fine.
They try to say this guy gonna come in and shoot everybody. He gonna come here. He's too relaxed. He gonna come and shoot everybody after this is done.
But it was just that overwhelming peace just settled on me in that meeting of like, okay. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just knew in that moment, July of 18, that everything was going to work out. And I didn't know how. And over the course of the next year and a half, because again, I had in my mind, okay, January 1st of 2020, that's when my shares matured. That's when I can quit, and we'll see how it goes. And the big criteria, I know we've talked about this in the past, the big criteria for me was, okay, I need to have my house paid off before I quit, and basically shift all of the earning burden just to my wife. So,
that's very manly.
I need to make sure, hey, I've got at least the house paid off. And at that point, I had no idea how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
No idea.
And this is when stuff started coming. So, okay, you took the news, good. And but were you already in that point of discovering oneness, right? You was at that point of discovering who you were? You thought you were. And
so that's where that I realized that this was just a journey into infinite, obedience, and that oneness. There's never an end.
Yeah.
It goes infinitely deeper.
Right.
And so for me, it was a series of new dawns every day of, okay, this is new. And this is something that a greater peace that I feel. And then suddenly here's this, financial situation that miraculously from
just
my
came up,
gets completely worked
out. But they
out.
telling you, they say, hey, we don't think you're the salesperson. You already pissed off at yourself because you run everybody nuts.
Right.
You probably ran them nuts.
Maybe.
And then they like, hey, you're not, even though you're killing it, you're not the perfect salesperson for us right now. And
because they said that you don't have the go-getter attitude.
Oh, stop it.
Like,
and you like, dude, everybody's ready to quit because of me.
And so for me, it was even making quote unquote poor financial decisions leading up to me quitting. For example, we had a health savings account through the office. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, if I am going to leave, it makes sense to max this out. So that at least that money's in that account when I leave to pay our medical bills if something comes up. But by doing that, I'm taking away from paying off the mortgage. Mm-hmm. And in my head, it was like the date for me was I got to have the house paid off by December 31st of 2019. And I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen.
Yeah, none.
No way. I'm putting $7,000 into that account and maxing out 401k and doing everything that's quote unquote not getting my goal met. And we have profit sharing within the company. Sales are at an all-time high. And the kicker for me was that we switched who did our payroll, because we would always get the fourth quarter bonus check when we got back from Christmas break, January of the next year. It was just predated for the previous quarter, but we'd switched payroll to Fidelity, and my end of December paycheck hits and the fourth quarter bonus and year-end bonus all hit on December 31st. And I had $100 more in my account than I needed to pay off the mortgage. And that for me was like,
and then stuff just started adding up.
Oh my God, like this is really happening. Mm-hmm. And even to the point where I called up Loan Depot or whoever had the mortgage, and the lady got me the forms. I got to the bank, like literally everything happened within 3 hours to pay off this mortgage, just because I had said, okay, we're going to have this paid off on December 31st of 19.
Now I normally say that's like doing, you put it in the atmosphere, you made your plan, made it plain. And then your job is not to try to figure it out. It's just let it play as play.
Yeah.
And everything else starts lining up with it.
And I was like, okay, if I'm not doing anything, if anything, I'm doing things counter to this happening, and it still happened. Like there's a bigger force at work than just me. And so,
but you're not at that point yet where you're feeling that you need to start meditating.
Well, I started meditating in the fall of 2017.
Okay,
so
so you still meditating all the time for about 2 years.
Yeah.
But were you becoming a new person through that whole time? Like
I think
you just was
it's
just
a constant process. Yeah, I think it's a constant process of having these experiences, and stuff was happening all along the way to grow and expand my awareness and my trust in just that pure beingness, rather than me forcing the effort.
Forcing.
If I could just surrender, let go, I found that I was doing more harm by putting forth my own effort than just letting go. Like if you imagine a hose pipe, where that water is flowing fast, my effort, which I thought was, positive, was really putting kinks into that hose instead of just hands off.
That sounds like that's what we all do though, right? That sounds like what we all do in life in general. Like
it's putting forth that effort.
Yeah. So what if the point that, like sometimes we look at someone and say, man, so-and-so's killing it, doing great, and we're challenging and trying to surpass that person. What if that person's in their where they need to be? They're in their flow. That's what their gifts are. So if their gifts is that, why would I try to compete with that?
Exactly. And that was one of the hardest things for me to get over, was that each of us have a unique individual incarnation within this life. That my plan is not your plan is not my plan.
Right.
None of that. So that your happiness and your focus should be on yourself and making sure that you are as complete and whole as possible. And then through the overabundance of love that is shown to you in your beingness, that's what gets out to everybody else. Is that if I weren't as faithfully myself, I couldn't be a good friend to you.
Yeah.
Or to anybody else.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so just that understanding of like, if I focus on me and make sure that I'm being at the fullest extent that I can be, rather than putting forth all that effort and annoying people, that I can be a, quote unquote, a term that I picked up in college, a means of grace, to you or to anyone else that I come in contact with. And so just seeing how that plays itself out is a phenomenal experience every day.
So as you let life be,
yes,
all of a sudden other doors start opening up for you that you wasn't even encountering. So like you said, there's some other encounters that come up.
Absolutely.
That just, you left an inheritance. The next thing you left, so talk about a little about
so it's just crazy how, whether it's, and for me being so financially oriented on the front end, that money was end all be all.
Yeah.
And so that's where it was very difficult to then even have the idea that like, wait a second, I feel that I need to leave this job. Okay, then there's got to be something then on the other side that's going to be there waiting for me. And again, my friend sends me this text message of this meme where this guy's having a conversation with a woman, and she's like, "Tell me your best fantasy." And he's like, "Oh, it's to quit my job." And she's like, "No, like, what's your most risque fantasy?" And he's like, "If I quit my job, I don't have anything else lined up." And I just thought that was so funny. Like, he sends it to me. I'm like, "Yes, this is what I'm actually doing." Oh my God, like.
How was it like for your wife when you said, "Hey, I think it's time for me"? No, because they told you, in a sense, they basically were letting you go, right? Or
no.
So what were they telling you when they said?
They were just basically saying that, like, we want you to still do the project management. You have a job. We want you to stay here. You're killing it on this side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we don't think that you're going to be the one that is like the salesperson for our company. Because the salesperson, we only had one salesperson in the company, and so it was sort of understood that I would follow in his footsteps. And I never got any training. There was nothing from him to me as far as information that came that, hey, you're not doing a good job. Like all the feedback I got was always positive. And so they just said, okay, you won't do this, but we want you to stay on to do this. And so I was like, okay, but that it didn't feel right. And so I think what gave my wife the assurance that, okay, this is going to work out, was seeing how all the financial stuff just happened to work out. And oftentimes that, she would say to me, "Who are you and what have you done with my husband?" Because she could even see how I interacted with her differently, or the kids differently. Just that sense of peace and joy. And,
but she was more, so she actually was happy that you were more positive, I guess. And
yeah, I mean, she could see from day one, a change in my beingness, my behavior from the very beginning. And so in
2017, she started noticing
early on. Yeah. A dumb example is growing up in the South and being so into college football, Alabama football for me. I remember
from Tennessee. I
had family in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And so I remember where I was when Alabama beat Miami in the '92 Sugar Bowl. Like that was a big deal for me at 9 or 10 years old.
It's a big deal at 9.
Yeah. And so I lived through all the DeBose, Francione years where Alabama just sucked, Shula, all that stuff. And so once Saban came along and we started doing well, I made sure that I got a championship t-shirt every time Alabama won the championship. And I remember the day where I just had this sense come over me of like, you didn't go to Alabama. Like, you're not on those teams. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Wearing this gear and being so proud that Alabama's now whooping up on everybody just because you lived through them not being any good.
Right.
And I took them all to Goodwill. And my wife was like, "What are you doing?"
She said, "You okay?"
Yeah. But like at that point, she realized there was something deeper that was transforming into finding identity outside yourself versus having that sense of being within yourself.
Right.
That instead of putting on that, Alabama championship t-shirt and walking around like, hey, especially here in Nashville where it's like, okay, all you are Tennessee fans, suck it,
Let my boy Jack hear that.
That it really was a sense of, okay, that's not me. You know what I mean? That I am this being here, and that's just ego. Yeah. Just get rid of that. Yeah. There's no reason to have any of that.
So it's like people that be battling with the whole, not battling. When you become oneness of oneself, you start really trying to quiet the stuff that go through your head, whatever that is, that conversation, and you're just trying to actually be at peace.
Yeah.
But your whole battle is really against yourself then at that point.
It's completely internal, and all of the transformations that happen are at no effort. Like I didn't wake up and say, this is dumb. Like I need to stop doing this because I need to look like I'm a better person. So I'm going to stop wearing Alabama t-shirts, or I'm going to stop doing X because that's supposedly maybe a not good thing to do. Yeah. It's fascinating to me how the journey of life just sheds those things off of you naturally with no effort at all. No effort at your own.
But you made a goal, which was the goal was to be at peace, internal peace. And all of a sudden
I thought it was a goal.
It was
okay. It really evolved naturally. Once I got into this was the drive. Like everything else just faded away to where I was focused on being, but not to the point of at the detriment of every other relationship. Whereas in the past with sales, if my focus was there, it was at the detriment to something else because it took effort and energy to strive for those sales, as opposed to this. And that's what I found fascinating, was that I could focus on being, and it didn't detract from anything else in my life. If anything, it benefited everyone else in my life. And so I was like, okay, this is crazy. And so again, meditating 5 minutes a day evolved to 10 minutes to 15 minutes. And then I start having all these experiences around me, and I'm like, okay, this is crazy. And it just keeps elevating and going further and further and drawing me in deeper and deeper, and to the point where I can't imagine life not being like this. I mean, you get so far down this path that rear view mirror even gets smaller and smaller and smaller. That's why, Jana would say, who are you and what have you done with my husband? Because it's like, okay, this is crazy. The first, Saturday that I was willing to miss an Alabama football game just to take the kids to the park. She's like, are you sure? Like, you can stay here. I'll take the kids to the park. You can stay here and watch the game.
Because you were so intense before. Like people couldn't talk while the game was.
Exactly.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, growing up here, you knew third Saturday of every October, that's Tennessee, Alabama. Yeah. The joke was with some of my other friends, like, okay, not to schedule, kids' birthdays, weddings, even
the day you're born, don't you schedule it on that day.
Not anything in the fall. And so whenever the first couple times of like, okay, Jana was like, you're willing to miss a game? Yeah, that's fine. And she's like, okay, that's weird. And then just other manifestations of life just flowing, and me having more patience, for stuff that would happen. Whereas in the past, I was not, as you can imagine, not a patient person at all. Yeah. Which
we still don't know where they came from. So the competitiveness of just in general.
I think it's just either growing up.
Because you're the middle child, right?
No, I'm the oldest. So my brother's 3.5 years younger than me, and he was a college athlete, a stellar baseball player. But even between he and I, we were always very competitive, and that spilled over from sports to school work to corporate life. I was so competitive. I was playing in a church league basketball team.
You cussed everybody out.
I didn't know. It was for a friend of mine. I didn't go to their church, but I was playing there, and one of their pastors tried to punch me in the face because I was boxing out, for a rebound. Like I had been taught in high school how you box out. You put your butt in somebody else's groin and you drive them back till you get the bout. And he got so miffed, like he swung, and being a little bit faster and nimbler, I could miss it, where you didn't connect. But I mean, that's a microcosm of just like, it doesn't matter.
And did you talk crazy at to him? Yeah, you were straight up. And you're a pastor. Come on.
Because to me, I couldn't bifurcate how I was taught to play basketball with, you're in a church league setting. Just calm down. You know? It was my mentality before all this was very much kill or be killed. You know, go as hard as you can all the time. You know, there's no off switch, but it was just 100%.
And then you got to a point where it got too much for you, and where you said this is not working. That's what happened. Yeah. So then you start figuring all that. Fall of 17, that worked out. And you got that going. You start noticing that, you know what, man, that's not right. Then the job, just stuff start playing into play. Yes. You already plan on quitting. Then they sit down and in March you plan on quitting. Yeah. They set you down in December or
July.
In July
March,
somewhere.
I was curious. I felt that push of, hey, you need to quit. I wasn't willing to because I knew what the payout.
But you didn't know what was on the other side though, right? You just knew I just need to quit.
Right.
Nothing on the other side. You didn't know what was there.
No.
You said, but before I quit though, I need to pay my mortgage off.
Right.
That's when you made that plan internally and all that other stuff.
And then it all just.
And then next thing you know, they told you that, and they had a meeting that they tell you how much your stuff is worth. And then the day you get ready to pay your stuff off, boom. And then when did you walk in and say, "Hey man, I quit. Here's my resignation"?
So that's what made it really interesting. So we were working on a project fall of 19, and the CEO walks into my office and my boss's office, who's the executive vice president, and starts yelling at us. He was very upset at the way this particular project was running and just was really pissed off. Even though me and my boss were doing everything, quote unquote, the right way.
Yeah.
He walks in and is just yelling and screaming. I go home fuming. And so I'm thinking, okay, January 1 it is. And this voice in my head's like, no, that's not the time. You need to look at July.
Now people would say that's the spirit or something. If you go down the ministry study, say spirit, that calmness of self
God,
or whatever.
The universe,
life,
everything, whatever it was. That voiceless voice that you know that you can't say no to.
And that some people call it the gut.
That's
what
for
gut
me.
Feeling. Gut feeling like so. Yeah.
And so I thought it was weird that I was being extended in my gut from January 1 to the end of July. But as I got home, it starts to dawn on me that, like, wait a second, July 31st, the end of the pay period, end of the month, bonus Friday, like all these things culminated on July 31st. And then kids start school the following Monday. So I was like, okay, that seems to be the right time. And then COVID happens. We paid off the house and everything. COVID happens, and Jan and I each have our jobs, and we're saving more than we've ever saved before. Yeah. And we're like, this is crazy. And so it really wasn't until the beginning of July, and I had to get my boss, because I was working from home. My boss's kid had been diagnosed with COVID. And so he was at home. I had to really push him to set up a Skype or something to where I could even resign over.
You're gonna quit on the internet?
I was like, I can't send this guy that I've worked.
It's not you. It's not you. It's me.
I can't send this guy an email that I've worked for 8 years saying, "Yeah, I'm done." Nobody expected it,
right?
That I tried to do things to at least intimate that I wasn't going to be around for a while, because there were certain committees or things around the office that I didn't volunteer for that people would have assumed that I would have done, just because I knew that my time was coming and I wanted to give those opportunities to other people. And so, he was just surprised, I think I'm done. Because the thing at that company, the average tenure was like 17 years.
So people are
lifers. And what do you mean you're leaving? That just didn't happen.
Even though, we cuss each other out. It's like a relationship. We talk like this all the time. What do you mean you're divorced?
And so I think they were kind of surprised. I think my boss tried to play it off a little bit because
he's man, April Fool's is over with. Get out of here.
Yeah. And so I think, but I told him, no, this is how life is flowing. And I said,
did you use those words? Yeah. Life is flowing like. He said, here you go with that hippie stuff.
But what I got him with was that I said, I don't believe that life removes me out of this situation and leaves you with a deficit. That something will come along and you will fill my position with someone far better than me at this job. And he's like, we just got a resume last week. I didn't know what to do with it. And that's who they hired, was this woman named
So Jane. All this stuff working out and the life and flowing and everything is moving.
And so I hope that for him and for those that were still there, hey, here's again, life doesn't work so that it can screw over other people. And so that even by me leaving, they weren't necessarily happy, I don't think, But at the same time, well, here, let's hire Jamie. She's done a fantastic. I was just in the office Tuesday having lunch with somebody, and they're all raving about how good of a job she's doing. I'm like, see, probably do a better job than I was doing,
So, but they seen, did they seen you at work, the transformation, right? They seen when you was that,
I think and not to some extent,
that annoying person.
But I think too that having that realization and not having that ego that says, oh, nobody can do my job better than me, demonstrate at least to a few of them that, hey, no, like I'm leaving, but someone better is coming, and you will have a much better person in that position than me. That again, life is faithful to all of us, not just to one person. And so, I think that was hopefully for lack of a better term, witness to everybody else that was there and at least somewhat aware of what was going on. Yeah.
So, I mean, but the thing is though, but did they see you in 2017 start making that transition from annoying to, you just seem more calmer? Like, hey, Matt, I mean, did you start talking the whole, like, as people would talk, tree hugging and hippie type talking then? I mean, and if you are a tree hugger, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm talking about, like, you was more of like the life and the flow. Were you talking like that? And they're like, what's wrong with Matt?
Part of it was, so where I was situated within the company was I was the grease within the gears. It was my job to go from sales to the developers to the support team. I was coordinating between all of them. And so I had gone from being really annoying to our support team of, hey, I need you to get this software package installed on this day by this time. You're a slacker if you don't. And, if they're 5 minutes over, calling them, hey, what are you doing? You're supposed to be
You were that guy? I
guy.
couldn't see that dude, man. Just,
and so
who I done met, just being that dude.
Hopefully, I think for at least a few of them that were at least paying attention saw that I became a lot less driven by those deadlines. Because as I started to realize that life was working on its own deadline, it didn't bother me if somebody did get something installed at a certain point, or it didn't bother me if a sale didn't come through at a certain point, because I knew in the grand scheme of things, I'm not responsible for this sale. The sale is going to happen if it's going to happen or not. It doesn't require my effort. If I get out of the way, it's more likely to happen. And so I think in terms of those types of inter-office relationships that, I mean, even for other people that would have been irritated that like I wasn't pushing as hard. I think they were at least aware that it happened, that shift.
They're like, man, Matt is definitely not that guy. He's definitely chilled. He's smoking weed now or something like that. Are you going into work barefooted and all that stuff? Were you more relaxed?
So again, even what I found interesting reading through your book, that the idea of what I wore was so much a part of who I thought I was, that my value was attached to my wardrobe. I thought the clothes made the man. I mean, I don't know, for people standing here, I'm 5'10", all of 150 pounds, and don't necessarily look, very old or mature. And so I relied on a more professional wardrobe to convey that message early on in my career.
So nobody don't look at you like, oh, that's a kid.
Right.
Like, no, I'm walking in with authority. I got power suit, power tie, power steering.
Custom suits, custom shirts. I looked the part for sure and knew how to carry myself. And so as this happened, I realized I could let go of that. And so I started wearing just plain t-shirts and pants, that I wore my suit and tie when I was supposed to, when I met with customers, because I still like looking nice. But I didn't allow that desire to drive me, as opposed to letting the beingness and the flow let me know, hey, this is when it's appropriate to wear this. And wait a second, you're just wearing that so you can show off. We're not about that. Just chill.
That's what the little voice in your head was saying. I'm telling you. So, because you got to be careful when you say the little voices in the head in today's time and term, because people are going to say, oh, little voice in your head. How many do you hear? How many are there? What it sound like? And also, here go this medication.
Right. For me, it was just that one nagging voice that I could get rid of and trust that the guidance of the gut. Because again, the gut was never that voice that you hear in your head. That's what I call like the voiceless voice, that just that drive, that guidance.
But just to give that assurance to say this is the right decision. Like this the peace. Like when you're not supposed to be talking to somebody or being around someone, that gut is saying, man, you might want to be, a little further away from that. But then your mind say, no, don't be like that. This guy's nice. And then next thing you know, you get robbed. You know what I'm saying? Something happened to you. But that's interesting, man, because this one of those things we got to continue another conversation about, because
anytime
more and more, because people want to start. I want to ask you this question before we get to that. when you do meditate, what are you supposed to be seeing and feeling in meditation?
That's just it. I don't have a goal for anything.
I mean, like, when people meditate, are they supposed to be seeing nothing? They're supposed to be just.
Well, I think for some people,
I mean, what is it? It's like
depending on whatever meditation teacher, and again, whatever works for you. If it works, great. I'm not telling you to do something different. For me, it was always just okay. I would literally go into an empty office within our building, close the door, lay on the floor in darkness and silence, and just set that alarm. And I would just lay there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I would just be amazed at if I could quiet my mind and quiet my breathing and just chill out, what would come to my awareness of, hey, do you remember this earlier today? Yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea. Or, hey, just here's an overwhelming sense of peace, And so once you connect back to that beingness source, you just carry it with you throughout the day. It's just like, your cell phone needing to be plugged into the wall to charge up for, so long. And so for me, that was my recharge time. And just that reminder of, okay, I'm calming myself, trying to stay centered and not allowing that voice in your head to just go crazy or your pulse to go out of whack when you're in a very intense business meeting. I'm sure you've been in that boardroom setting where everybody's on edge and you're going after the throat of somebody across the table from you. And I could just calm down, reassess the situation, and take all of that negative energy out and just be calm and peaceful in those circumstances.
Calm it down. I mean, but what I'm hearing throughout all said and done, I think people's going to be listening to this is the fact that really understanding that life is going to happen regardless, with you or without you.
Exactly.
So if it rains, it's going to rain. You can't stop it. That's why like when the Bible talk about, because we haven't talked about this. Why the next episode we're going to be talking with Matt about the fact that he's actually a theologian. This brother went to get his master's in theology. So for him to go to this, you got to have all that intensity going, ready to knock something, going to the 10th degree, and then he's up for studying religion. And then he actually finds peace outside of the religion walls.
Yes. Yeah.
Like at the point where you just start noticing one within self, right? So
yeah, I mean,
that's outside of churches and all that.
That's stuff. What was crazy to me was like, wait a second. Like I've lived up to that point. Gosh, you're gonna make me do the math. 34 years, going to church every Sunday, doing everything the way you're supposed to be.
Intense. Cussing folk out.
Yeah.
Get it done or you suck.
Yeah. And I didn't see the fruit of any of that until I started doing this. I'm like, wait a second.
Having clarity.
Right.
Peace.
If you're supposed to judge, a tree by its fruit, well, that tree that was planted and going to church and doing all this stuff, that didn't bear any fruit. But now suddenly I'm over here doing this other thing. And that's
where now you're at a point where you got to figure out. I mean, I didn't even figure out. You just let life be what it is and said, maybe what if that's what the Bible's talking about?
Oh, that's where we get a whole different conversation.
Where what if because what I did learn, what you do look at the other religious type characters and figures and things like that.
Yeah.
They were always trying to find out, like Buddha, things like that. They were trying to figure out who they were, right? But it seems as Christ always knew who he was out the gate,
right? And
like he knew it from the day one.
You don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow worry about itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That look at the lilies of the field. Look at the birds of the air. They neither toil nor spin, and yet Solomon isn't dressed as well as one of them. And you're like, oh, maybe I should just calm down and like.
But that's maybe too simple, and because it's so easy and simple. Because it's so simple, so easy. We
try to overcomplicate things.
Man, but there's more to that.
Right. I mean, I'm not into country music, so you have to forgive me, but like
me either. But I listen to it.
There was some song like Jesus Take the Wheel.
Oh yeah, of course,
that sticker that says if God's your
I don't use that saying a couple times, and it done helped.
But like you see that people like pay it lip service, but nobody lives it out. Like I would challenge people, live it out, get out of the way, and just see what happens. But you've got to develop the calmness and the peace and the tranquility within yourself to allow that to happen. Because it's not a pretty process. I mean, there are things that personally having to deal with throughout the last 3.5, 4 years now that was a challenge, was a struggle, dealing with deep-rooted anxieties and fears that I didn't know were there, but I had to face them and get over them so that I could continue in peace. And so, it's certainly a journey, and there's things to work out and to work through. It's not all, roses, but Stuart Wilde is a guy that passed away now, but he was talking about how
And like that guy, I can't remember his last, something die. Like a meditation teacher, something like that.
Okay.
But Stuart Wild was talking about how life is basically just you just need to live.
Yeah.
So like when he's talking about being successful, like there's some people, what you got to realize, majority of everybody's not gonna be wealthy.
Right.
That's why it's a minority few.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all scrambling and fighting to be this wealthy person. Yeah. What if it's not in your cards? But we're fighting so much to get it, and it's not in your cards.
Well, I think that's what's so funny. Whenever I tell someone I'm quote unquote retired, they automatically assume I won the lottery.
That's what I said. I said, so did you sell a company, or did you do?
Yeah.
Did you sell? Did you do? He said, no. I did sell it. I stopped doing the company. I did have a company. When I was doing the little, doing cards, I said, I mean not cards,
tickets.
Something like StubHub. He said, well, we did do that, but no, I didn't sell no company. I didn't hit the lottery. I just stopped.
Yeah.
That I just
and life has just gone on.
And then your parents probably think you crazy. Everybody else probably think you got some things loose up in there.
I'm very blessed to have parents that have been as supportive as they are.
And a spouse.
Yeah.
You can't say enough about your spouse saying, hey.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and stop working.
And now it's gotten to the point where even if an opportunity came along, I have to clear a very high bar now with Jana to say, hey, I would even want to go back.
Not only that, because she don't want you to see that other guy. So she's like, you know what? No, you stay here.
Stay right here.
You do your day trading, do what you're doing. We're enjoying life. Everybody's. But the fact is, when it comes down to the spiritual thing, how does that work out when y'all both grew up in church and y'all both, when it's like, okay, do we go to church? We not go to church? That's a whole nother conversation too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Touch on it real quick.
Oh, well, it was for me. I guess I came to that realization a lot faster, but I knew that I can't force it on somebody.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting in church and they were going over
the normal scriptures you go over all the time.
Well, it was they were doing like a creedal statement. I think they were either going over the Nicene Creed or the Apostles' Creed, and I'm going through this and I'm like, yeah, I don't believe this anymore.
So you just sit there like,
so
this
is what's going through my mind. It's like, I don't believe this anymore. But like, is it incumbent upon me to stay and expect them to change, or should I be respectful and leave? I'm like, I'm just gonna let this play out. Again, this whole process teaching you patience and like, okay, I don't have to be the first mover in this. I can let life move and adjust, And so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna see how this goes. And then it probably really wasn't more than a month or two later that, Jana decides, okay, we've been going downtown Nashville, about a 25 minute drive to get to church. She's like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. Let's go here locally and see if we can find something. And we're in this church for the first time, listening to this pastor for the first time. And he's going on about hell and damnation and something that's completely out of my wife's character. She looks at me and she goes, all right, it's time to go. I'm like, mid-service? Like, you want to wait till it's over? She's like, no, we're leaving now. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so that was it for her.
And it wasn't like and that's one thing conversation you had with Janet then, where was it like a point of saying, well, since you're not, people argue.
Yeah.
You're not here. I'm not here mentally and emotionally. Let's just leave. It wasn't that. She just like, hey, you know what? I'm good. You ready to go?
Yeah. That's what I was saying. It was so shocking. Like, because it's completely out of her character to just get, like, I thought for sure we would have the conversation after church is over. The kids are napping on a Sunday afternoon. She'd say, hey, let's probably not go back. But like in the middle of the service, she just looks at me and goes, all right, let's go. Like, I was sitting there like, now? Like, I was even flummoxed myself. Like, she's like, all right, let's get up and go. And so, yeah, for her, it was more of because even having a neighbor that she could bounce ideas off of that wasn't churched, that helped her, that was her journey to feel more confident and comfortable in that choice, to the point where once that decision was made, for her having the peace that then came after it of every subsequent Sunday looking at me in the eyes on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. going, wow, this is nice that we can just lay here in bed, right? That she didn't have the guilt that she was expecting, all of this stuff. So
the gut thing was saying we're making the right decision. The mind thing probably was saying, you've been going to church your whole life.
Right,
why are you?
Right.
You can't do that. You can't. I mean, no, that's not right.
And
you
so
can't do that.
It was nice for her and her journey to have her neighbor to be able to bounce those head ideas off of, to then help her intuition, trust her gut that, okay, this was the right decision and I am at peace. And in fact, not only am I at peace, but my God, I love Sundays now. Whereas in the past, it was the drudgery of
you got to get up, go to church, do that
with the kids and everything. Because, for both of us at the time working, the weekends was really the only time we got to really spend time with our kids. And so, to spend such a big chunk of a Sunday getting them ready and getting to church and then having to shuttle them back again, being downtown. So that was a good chunk of Sunday, to then now having that lazy, peaceful Sunday morning where you can make a big breakfast for your kids and
easy like Sunday morning.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really has been not only life transforming for me, but for Jana. And then I'm very interested to see what the fruits of that are in our kids' lives 5, 10, 15, 30 years down the road.
Will it be like that Will and Jada type thing where their kids just out there, just people's like, what
no.
what is, that's what I mean. Cause
Right.
they would be like, hey, we don't want to pressure our kids, don't pressure that. We don't see the fruit of what we've done and taught them. Maybe they go their own direction. Then it'd be to the outside, not normal.
Right. I think for us, it's more, our kids are 5 and 7. I'm not bugging them about what do you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
Just
so like, which
relax.
we normally heard a lot. Like, what do you want me to grow up? Like, dude, I just want to be alive. What I'm saying? Enjoying life.
And I think too, as we get further down the road, like it wouldn't, like for me and Jana, we both have our master's degrees. School was always very important to us. That one of those hurdles of getting over as part of this journey was, again, in meditation one day, okay, what if your kids don't go to college? And like that internal, like, that gut check of like, that's going to hurt my ego because I went to grad school, Jana went to grad school. They go to a magnet school where everybody expects them to go to college. Like, can I handle that social stigma of like, if my kids follow the flow of life and don't go to college? Like, and so again, life brings you these hurdles to get over to where it's like, they may go to college, but you have to be willing and able to go with the flow such that if life doesn't lead them to college, you're okay with it. You know what I mean? And so it's not just how you internally deal with life. It's how you deal with everybody else's journeys that brush up and impact yours that you've got to learn to chill out and be okay with.
Well, I'll tell you, before we go, one thing we talked about to help me understand Matt and other folks that may be, I think maybe doing what he may have gone through and experienced. The fact is that Michael Singer, the surrender experiment, that deal. That book helped me understand a little bit more about seeing who you were, right?
Sure.
Understanding what you really all about.
Yeah, because for me, getting started on this journey, I one of the first things I did was I got an Audible subscription and I started listening to books that my friend would recommend to me or that I felt